Ask the Podcast Coach for November 24th, 2018.
Let's get ready to podcast.
There it is. It's that music. That means, hey, it's Saturday morning. And it's time for Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live. I'm your host, Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting.com. And joining me right over there, the one and only Jim Cullison from theaverageguy.tv. Jim, how's it going, buddy?
Greetings, Dave. Happy Saturday morning to you. Post-Thanksgiving, at least here in the United States, everybody's kind of got a little bit of a food hangover, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, a little food coma going on. I know I definitely had that going on Thursday. We did everybody does the turkey and the whole thing. We did something different this year. We ordered from Cracker Barrel.
Okay, so like a traditional Thanksgiving, the whole thing, the turkey, the stuffing, the mashed potatoes,
my brother
all
walks
of
into
it.
this giant cardboard box, and it says Cracker Barrel to go. And you open up, and there's this big tin thing of turkey and ham and gravy and stuffing. And then you have these big white containers of sweet potatoes, mashed potatoes, green beans, the cranberry stuff that nobody eats. And we grabbed some plates and threw it on the table and got done. It was like, all right, well, there's no mess on the stove. And, it's just you throw your plates in the dishwasher and throw the leftovers in the fridge and you're done. You're like, well, that was easy. And it was really good. I really, because to me, I'm like, all right, mashed potatoes, like, is this real mashed potatoes or is this like, and it was quite yummy. I was like, my brother's like, we're definitely doing this next year. He goes,
that's easy.
Yeah.
That's
none
easy.
of this, like, is the turkey done? No, probably another 45 minutes. It was like, so
HelloFresh did, I've been doing HelloFresh now for the last 6 or 7 months, and they had a box you could buy that they would send it all fresh to you, and then you could cook it yourself. So if you don't want to go out and buy the turkey and some of those other kinds of things. And you got me thinking, like, Cracker Barrel doing this, why has Kentucky Fried Chicken not gotten in on this thing? Like, they have all the materials, right? I mean,
except real potatoes.
Well, that's true. But for some people don't care. Like, why have they not gotten in on this gig? So I don't know.
That's true.
It was good. We grilled ours. My daughter helped me. We make I almost call it bacon skinned turkey now, because we make this weave. We make a bacon weave, and then you just lay it over the top of the turkey, and I put it in a little envelope, and then we grill it, and it's just fantastic. And so that cooks for 5 or 6 hours, kind of smoke it on the grill. And then we cut that up and went to my son's house. So it was a fun break. It is a nice kind of warm up to the holiday season here in the United States. And you get Thanksgiving, you get a couple days off. You go 3 or 4 weeks, it's Christmas. You go a week, it's New Year. And then you go into the holiday drought until Easter, right?
Yeah,
so,
that's the worst thing ever is New Year's in Ohio, because that's like, wow, we have 3 more months of winter.
Yeah, and no holidays.
Holidays, nothing.
No, you're used to like working every other week. You're in for a day or two. So it's coming up. My podcast is live on Thursday nights, and we canceled it every single Thanksgiving. And it was nice to get a week off, and I cancel them all at work as well. So no podcasts at work, no podcasts here. I didn't do one on Monday. Like, it was weird. Not Dave. I'm 5 or 6 or 7 days and without going live. This is my first live since last week. It feels weird.
Well, this is the question. I've seen this in so many different forums and stuff. It's the holidays. People are busy. Should you take, now in your case, it makes sense to take it because it's on Thursday.
Yeah.
That's almost like a no-brainer. Again, who is your audience that are going, no, man, suck it up and, eat your turkey faster and record. But should you take a week off or two during the holidays? And it's one of those where I've heard both sides of the fence on this one. What are your thoughts?
I think I could get people to listen Thanksgiving evening, by the way. I mean, I because people go to movies, they got nothing to do, they're in a coma. I bet I could actually do it. I say kind of it's up to you as to what you think your audience wants and what you have time for.
That's the key one, I think.
It's really nice for me to take a break and not to worry about it. And we did a big Black Friday episode last Thursday that would really cover in the 2 weeks. Like the most appropriate day was Friday, and it wouldn't make sense to have another podcast on top of that. So for me, no, let's just leave that. And that's probably a tradition I'll do. I've done that a couple years in a row now. And I will probably do that from here on out to have that Black Friday episode the week ahead of time and let it go for 2 weeks. But Dave, yeah, I think you just have to make that decision. Like, could you get 2 in the can and do one that way? Sure, totally.
See, that's me. Right? I'm like, why not just put 2 in the can? But the thing there is, then you're trying to do 2 podcasts in 1 week.
Right.
You got to make sure you still have value in there, not just like, okay, well, it's Thanksgiving, so here's your episode kind of thing. But yeah, I it's one of those things I think people tend to obsess over, that you like either don't or do. It's and if you are going to take a break, say, hey, next week it's a holiday here in the States, so we're not doing a show. Feel free to enjoy one of my 8 million that I have in the back catalog, kind of thing. I think as long as you announce it, it's fine. I don't know. People sound like if you miss 1 week, like you're going to lose 30% of your audience. No, I think if you just announce it, and
I don't even think you need to announce it. I can't tell you how many podcasts I've been a part of or have listened to recently where they've skipped a week for whatever reason. People were sick, and I don't like that day comes along and I'm like, oh, how dare they not do a podcast on the day I'm ready to listen to it? Unsubscribe. Like nobody does that. Yeah. Like it's not so no, I wouldn't worry about it. Just come back the next week. Don't apologize. Just like, hey,
yes, that's another one. Please.
We're back. Like that's all people care about. We are back. Yeah. Hey, I had a podcast I listened to in real life. What's her? Veronica Belmont. They just changed hosts. And they didn't even say anything about it. Just a brand new host came on with a little teaser, a little trailer. Hey, we're going to have a new season 4, blah, blah, blah. They just kept going. No explanation of who or what or when. Did I unsubscribe? No. I'm like, okay, this sounds okay. I like the content. I'm going to keep going. I'll give it a try. If it gets really bad, I'll probably unsubscribe. But no, I don't think if you miss a week, I don't think people are going to, like, you're important, but you're not that important.
Exactly. Yeah. This is one of those where you kind of go, podcasting can change the world, and you'll meet but on the other hand, at this point, you're still kind of just a podcast. It's like, I hate that phrase, but there are times you're like, yeah, that's the whole, I don't know. Especially I think the apology thing. When you come back, please don't apologize. Do it at the end if you're going to. But speaking of things that sometimes we obsess over, we do have a question here from Josh.
Hey, Dave and Jim. This is Josh from the Corner Cutter podcast. I was wondering if you had any opinions on this, and that is whether you should have feedback, contact info, or your name at your website.com for your email address. Currently, I have feedback at thecornercutterpodcast.com. I've been thinking of changing it to Josh. I know it doesn't really matter, but I was wondering if, like, Josh, it's maybe better for a personal brand, or is there one that's easier to remember? So I would appreciate you guys giving your thoughts on that. Thanks, as always. This is Josh from thecornercutterpodcast.com. Have a great rest of your day.
That's all about Rubik's cubing, speed cubing. So there you go for the niche podcast.
His audio was great.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Feedback or Josh?
Both. Yeah, just make them both and make them go right to one account. Like it's 2018.
See, that'd be fun, because you could announce, if you want to contact me, it's feedback at thecornercutterspodcast.com. Then on your website, you could have Josh, and then you could compare, which one's which. Put feedback in the show notes, but Josh on the contact page, and then you can see where people are coming from. But in the end, yeah,
I'm kind of thinking
in the middle. Like, he goes, I'm probably overthinking this. I'm like, yes, you are.
Well, anything worth thinking about is worth overthinking about. Yeah. So I would, in the podcast, I would use the feedback one, because I think it's more formal that way. So, hey, if you want to contact us, send us an email for feedback. And then when I'm meeting people personally, you don't want to give them some feedback email address. That's awkward.
Yeah.
So then you would have Josh at the address. So you can have both. And I would actually have info, and I might even have, because, people are just trying to find your email address and get it to you. And if you're making it hard for them to find it, they'll give it about, 15, 20 seconds, and then they're done. And I think you just should have your email address plastered everywhere, all over the place, as much as you can get it out there, so that people know how to contact you. Because, Dave, you've looked. I've gone to go look for people, and I can't find them. in 30 seconds, maybe is what I give it. And then I'm like, okay, it's not that important. So make sure they can find it too.
I'll get them later. Yeah. So we're going to do this live. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go over. It's slowly coming up. Here it is. The Corner Cutters podcast. So I want to contact Josh. So I see he's got home, episode, subscribe, feedback, resources, support the show, guests, and about. So I don't see a button that says contact. So that would be my first suggestion. Make it obvious, but feedback is pretty close to contact. So if I click there, I go to feedback. There you go. He's got Josh at the Corner Cutter. So that's cool. And he's also got a form. So that way, whichever one you want. So yeah, you're good to go. So
yeah, I do both. Have them out there, and super easy to get them forwarded. Once you've set up however you've decided to do your domain or whoever's hosting it, sometimes they have a paid option to do email. Sometimes you can pretty much now you're going to pay for someone to host your email. There's very few free sites left. Google's, you're going to pay a little bit.
Yeah.
Microsoft used to offer it for free. Now you're going to pay a little bit. So you're going to pay a little bit for email. You're a host provider. If you have Hover, they've got a $5 a year or something like that option to get email, and you can get, I think, up to 5 or something crazy like that. So don't be skimpy on them. Then just push them all to one email address, so you only have to be checking one.
Yeah. The one thing I thought, I've been on kind of a kick lately where Facebook groups are more confusing than I think they're worth. I made a yes or no question, and the question was, when you go to check out a podcast for the very first time and you go to their website, are you upset when there's no download button and only a player? So first things first, Jim, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, if I'm going to the site specifically to click play, I get super frustrated when it's buried. Like get that thing as close to the top as you possibly can. I say that, and then if you go to the averageguy.tv, you do have to drill one, you got to drill one level into. By the way, my front page is set up. I do have a jukebox player there. So if you wanted to click play right away, you could do it on the front page. So even though I say that, Dave, I'm probably not practicing what I preach.
Well, see, I'm weird because I do the podcast rodeo show. So I want to download click. And a lot of times I want to download it, close your website, and I'll listen to it on my computer. So I think I'm weird in that. But the majority of people said, no, I'm not upset if there's no download button. That was 64. 22 people said, yes, I am. But here's the thing I thought was interesting. I only had two options, yes or no. That was it. There was no maybe. And then people put in, I'm upset if no RSS feed link to copy paste into Downcast. 10 people said that. I don't check our podcast on other websites. 5 people said that. 4 people said, I wish they actually had a player on the homepage. 4. I just thought it was interesting that I'm like, look, I asked a yes or no question, and
I just realized I misunderstood your question. You were asking not a player, but a download link.
Yeah, so
that's what you were saying.
Well, either or. I mean, I think everybody should have a player. I always want, give me a player, and underneath the player, some sort of download link.
Yeah. And I provide that, but is it necessary? I don't know.
No, it's not necessary, but I sure wish people would do. That's a pet peeve of mine, especially when I do. The thing that's so weird about the podcast rodeo show, I go, give me a link to your website and give me a direct link to your file, or the link to the episode where I can download it. And I mean, does that sound complicated?
No.
To a podcast? And I'll get one link. Somebody just sent me a link to their show on iTunes, and I'm like, that is neither. And I just want to all right. I just, at that point, I just want to instantly, all right, you're done. Sorry, there's your review.
Well, yeah. And last week I played a little snippet of you that I had cut out, and I had to go get that. I had to go out to your site and download it from there. But I never do that. I never download. I've been listening to at night. I've been putting on YouTube videos of rain. I know this sounds funny. I'm having trouble sleeping, and the rain is helping. It's calming and it's soothing and it helps me go to sleep. So, but I've been listening to that, and I actually had this thought. I'm like, I wonder if somebody has a podcast that is just the episodes are just different kinds of relaxing sounds or rain. So I went into there and I looked for rain or rain sounds or sleeping, and it's all talk, but no, anyways. But I had this thought. I'm like, maybe I'll start maybe I'll start a podcast for myself because I wanted to listen to it in my player. I didn't want YouTube streaming. You know why? Because when I wake up in the morning, I go to look at my stats, my phone stats, and it shows YouTube for 9 hours or whatever because I've been playing that video. And I thought, I wonder if I could just make this a downloadable podcast kind of thing. And I couldn't find any. So I don't know. Maybe I'll start listen to the Rain podcast, and it'll just be rain sounds.
Yeah.
You know?
Stephanie says, does playing at a faster speed alter their voices much? Typically it doesn't. It just makes them sound like they're talking like this really, really fast, and it takes out all the spaces. If you're editing something like in Audacity or Sony SoundForge and you speed it up, there all of a sudden it starts to sound like that, and they sound like that. But especially if you keep your export rate in multiples of 11, I think it is. That's why it's 64, 96, 128. If you do that differently, it used to be, especially Flash players would make you sound like you were a chipmunk.
Yeah.
But no, it just speeds up the way it is, which I'm
takes out the spaces, right?
Yeah.
It removes spaces is what it does.
Yeah. Randy says a white noise iOS app is priceless on the road. That's what I use. I use a one called, I think it's called something like Mobile Fan or something like that. And I love it because I'm on the road. I'm like, oh, because I have an actual like air filter thing. This is called Bedtime Fan. It's free, and it's because you have to watch some sort of weird ad, but it's just a picture of a fan, and then you pick your speed, and you can set a timer. And if I go, I want this on medium.
Pick your speed.
Yeah, and it makes me watch an ad here.
Oh, that is so great.
So if I go, nope, don't want to watch an ad. Thank you. There's the sound of the fan.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love this thing.
My daughter, like you'd think, she's a millennial. She's all into technology. She's the average girl, is what she says she is. She's dad's tech girl. She uses an old school fan in her room. You'd think she would just do this.
Yeah.
But no,
I used to do that. People thought it was weird. It's 18 degrees outside, 6 feet of snow, and Dave's turning on the fan. And I'm like, it's just the sound. So yeah. Yes, the actual blades move on that. It actually spins around. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So
that was a tangent.
Exactly. Let me see. Oh, here's another question that this came in. I'm getting better now of when people email me during the week. And we're kind of on a things that maybe we don't need to obsess over. Kind of theme today. He says, I have a dilemma and would like to know what you do in this situation. I'm sending the same email to Rob and Elsie. I tell you that because I know you all talk to each other, but I want to know your thoughts. After interviewing you for my podcast, I'm going to rename his name. I'm going to redact his name. Where you suggested I do both solo and guest episodes. I've started doing bonus episodes again because he was like, should I do solo or should I do interview? And I went, what's wrong with both? He says, but however, because he's doing bonus episodes, my numbering is off now. He says, here's what I mean. I've released a total of 256 episodes. Episodes 1 through 17 were solo episodes. Starting with episode 18, they began interviewing people. I've released 200 episodes with guests. When I do a bonus solo episode, I say, hey, this is a bonus episode number 38 of the Name Redacted podcast. And today I'm talking about whatever. So this week I will release episodes 256 to 260, but Tuesdays and Thursdays episodes will be bonus episodes 37 and 38. Should I just leave this the way instead of trying to correct it? Hindsight is 2020. And then he went, sigh. I wish I made better decisions in starting July. So what would you do? Name redacted. And for me, I just went, wait, what? So if it's a solo show, it's a different numbering. I just went, wait, if you're putting on an episode, I don't understand the concept of bonus episodes myself. I'm like, if I decided, like, this show comes out right now on Saturday. If I throw something out on Wednesday, today's show, he said, trying to scramble quickly to find out what episode number this is. Today's show is episode number 234. So if I decide to put out a show on Wednesday, that's episode 235, unless it's like a 1 minute, in which case I don't number it. It's just like, hey, I don't know. What do you think, Jim? To me, I'm like, this is one of those things where I'm like,
yeah, well, we created numbering systems to serve us, not the other way around, right? And so it sounds to me like, I think like when we're worried about those numbering systems, or however, if you're worried about people actually caring, nobody cares. Like,
Right.
I have no idea. School of Podcasting, I listen to it every week. I have since 200, Dave. And I couldn't tell you what it is. I have to look up the number on my own show. Like every week I'm like, oh, is this 3, whatever. So I don't, it doesn't matter. Like, no one cares. You get a GUID when it goes to iTunes. They have their own number. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Do what you want.
The only reason they came into play was, and we're talking 2000, I don't know, 6, 7. They came out with this thing called the iPod Nano, and it looked about like this. This is
one of those. Mm-hmm.
This is like a little bottle opener, but it's about the size of this thing, and it didn't have a screen, which was the dumbest thing ever. But it was super duper small. But consequently, nobody knew what they were listening to. So that's when people started going, hey, ask the podcast coach, episode number 234. Well, that way, in the first 5 seconds, you could go, oh, no, I've already heard this, and skip it. So that's why those came into play. And then the other question that I'm surprised they didn't ask is, where do I put the episode number? Because some people love to put it at the beginning of the title, and some people want to put it at the end. Because you probably should put it somewhere in your show notes, because in the event somebody goes, wait, I heard this on episode number 612. If I go to your website, I should be able to type in 612 and find that episode. But even that I scratch my head on, because the only time that really comes into play, I would think, is if somebody heard something from 4 months ago. Because otherwise it's going to be probably on the front page of your website. So it's just one of those things, again, I think we kind of get a little, that one especially, to me, an episode is an episode. That's actually something I've been pondering, of maybe in the middle of a week every now and then, put out like a minute to 2 minute snippet, just for giggles. And I wouldn't even count that. I would be like, it'll probably evaporate. You can actually do that with many things in your feed. You can say, at least on Libsyn, you can say, look, publish this on December 1st and have it expire on December 10th, which means it pulls it out of your feed. So if you're doing a special, Christmas special, now through the 10th, blah, 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 you can actually have it evaporate. But yeah, that's another one. I'm just like, I'm with you. I don't think, I think half of it now, it's like you said, we do it for us. I think it's an ego thing.
No, well, it can be, but it's a system that serves us. Like, we should do it in a way that makes sense for us, so we can keep track of it. When I started Home Gadget Geeks, it was actually called Home Tech. And so my first 100 episodes are all HT 100 or HT 98 or HT whatever. And then I changed over to Home Gadget Geeks, and they became HGG, right? And so there was a different numbering system. But for me, it just kind of helps me keep track of the things. So however it's best for you to get that done, 99.9% of your audience doesn't care.
Michael in the chat room says, hey, on the last episode I put into Libsyn, I saw some sort of kind of tracking code thingy. That is the official word for it. It's the tracking code thingy. Mm-hmm. And here's what it is. Let me switch gears here, and then I will share my screen. It's kind of like, in fact, I have somebody coming on the School of Podcasting this week to talk about UTMs, which I have no idea what that stands for, but it's basically a tracking code in like Google, for lack of a better phrase. So what it is when you go into your previous episodes in Libsyn, except I'm still not sharing my screen. There we go. If I go into episodes here, wait a minute, I'm in the wrong spot. Content previously published. There we go. So here's the current one. I have an episode I'm looking at, and I interviewed Kathy Heller. So if I click here to embed it, there's a little embed button. At the top, it says custom tracking code. So what I could do, if I said, hey, I'm going to give this to Jim Cullison, I could type in Jim Cullison at the top, and you'll notice where it puts this little gizmo at the end of the download link that says stats-code equals Jim Cullison. It's the same thing if I give you a link to the directory, the embedly link, and I believe if I click here on get code, maybe not in the player. I thought it did. I'm pretty sure it does. But what that does is, if you're trying to figure out where does where's my audience coming from? I can see what country and stuff. So if I go into the stats for that episode, so what I did was I made a link for my newsletter and made a link for my website. I was playing with LinkedIn, so I made a special link for LinkedIn, even though that's already a destination. And I made a link for my guests. So if I go into the episode links, the specific stats for this episode, and I scroll down to the bottom, I can see I have a ton of people on my feed. And what is this? Okay, that's the player on my other page. But down at the bottom now, you have stats code. So I can see that I had 4 people listen on my webpage the one day, then 3 the next, and then 2 the next. So I'm getting some plays on my actual website. Now, if I say, well, how many people listened in my newsletter? I could see 2, basically, 1 a day, which is about right because I don't have a huge news. This one's probably going to be 0. LinkedIn, yeah. So nobody listened on LinkedIn because I was playing with that a ton. But it gives you the ability, so you could have multiple codes for one episode. So it's just another way of doing that. It'll be interesting to see how people use this, but that's what it does. And I also found out that if I go here again, how I did that is I went to content, previously published, and when you click on the embed code, you'll see the custom tracking code. But if you have a show that's not using the $20 or more plan, like Building a Better Dave, and I go to previously published and I click on the embed code, no soup for you. I believe that's something I just found out last time. I'm like, oh, you got to have the advanced stats package to have that option. But it's a neat little, I'll be interested to see as time goes on, the creative ways people use that. But that's what that is. The official, what was the phrase again? The custom link thingy, I believe. Yes, the kind of tracking code thingy. So Stephanie asked, is anyone watching their pods on Podcharts? Jim?
No.
Yeah, I'm like,
no.
To me, I went over there, I looked at it, I did whatever you have to do to verify that, yes, that's my show. And that's the last time I was over at Podcharts. For me, I don't know. I'm not, I think this is a Libsyn thing for me. And I'm not making this up. Somebody will release an episode and email support 7 minutes later and go, my stats aren't moving. And it just, when we say people obsess over stats, they're seriously sitting there refreshing their screen going, it's not going up. And I'm just like, and I want more downloads like everybody else, but it's a joke, but it's not a joke. Looking at your stats does not make them grow. In fact, it makes them shrink. Go look at your audience and see what they're talking about and try to come up with that next topic that's going to make people go, oh my gosh, you got to listen to this podcast. So I saw it. I did what it does. There's a ton of them now. I think every week I get 4 different services now telling me that my show went up or down. I used to be number 7 in technology in US for podcasting in this subgenre of a subgenre. And now I'm number 9. And I'm like, okay, would I have done everything differently this week? What should I have done differently? And I'm like, I don't know. I think I pretty much did the best I could. All right, moving on. So
I think we've said it 1,000 times, is that the valuable feedback. I mean, those charts are helpful. Kind of know where you're at. How are things? How do you compare against your peers? That's really where that becomes effective. But man, when you're getting direct feedback from your listeners, that's the value. And you just can't. I crave that to get it, and I do every week. I get, and I'm sure you do on School Podcasting too. You get we get great feedback live here. Like I don't know if we, the fact that we get, today's a little low at 10, at least in Chatwing, listening live. But typically we're 15 or 20. That's awesome feedback for us. So that's the kind of feedback I crave. I guess I don't worry about it as much because all my shows are live and I get so much live feedback. I just don't even worry about it.
I've actually been, I don't know, I guess, I don't know if it's luck or I would like to say it's because I planned it this way, but I've done a couple shows that I like, the one about the 3 things every podcaster needs, which was basically how to set up your support. So I got a ton of feedback on that. And that was one that I hit play on. I'm like, this is not really your typical podcast, I had so many people that said, man, I had to go back and listen with notes. And then the last one with Kathy Heller is I brought her on, and I'm like, I hope my audience can connect.
Yeah,
that
she was really good.
She did this in the music business. We can take what she did and apply it to podcasting. And I had a lot of people say, man, that was a really good thing. And then I basically went over a post that Tim Page did that said, hey, I actually quit my day job, and here are the things that made that possible. And when I looked at that, and the first one was get out of debt, I went, oh, that doesn't make that very easy. And I'm like, yeah, but that's true. That's what he did. And he explains how he had 3 jobs and, did everything he could to get out of debt. But I got a ton of feedback on that. And it has nothing to do with charts or downloads, but I had people saying, wow, that was good. Thanks so much for doing that. So to me, that is almost more important to me than downloads. I really don't. If I look at my downloads, I know August, September, I actually had a dip. I don't know what was going on, but it just, it happens. And now it's back up and it's growing again. And that is something I think that a lot of people, when you just look at downloads, I think it's just a general thing. I think your audience leaves and comes back. I think they do. I think that, I don't know if it's the fear of missing out or what. I'm actually going to, here's the talk about things that people don't care about. I'm going to actually cut down on my podcast consumption, because I realize there are different versions of podcasts about podcasting. There are people that are outgoing and there's interview shows and things like that. I gotta figure out and then there's some that just regurgitate the same old in a way. And I'm like, I'm not learning anything from them. And that's not the right word to say. But I'm just, it's good stuff for beginner stuff, but it's nothing, like Daniel's thing on the way people are getting kicked out of iTunes. That was like, okay, you can't get that anyplace else, So I just dawned on me, and usually I was kind of blowing that off, going, well, I'll listen for the first few minutes, and if it's something that I know, I'll just skip it. Well, I'm constantly skipping stuff. But then I'm listening to an audiobook right now called Voice Triggers, something triggers. He said, talk triggers. Man, is this an interesting book? And I'm like, okay, so why am I not listening to something that's very interesting when I'm listening to something that 9 times out of 10, I'm going, yeah, okay, got it. Next. So I was just like, this is dumb. I'm like, I need to cut back on some of my, for me, it's podcasts about podcasting. And it's nice because I want to know everybody in the space, but I'm like, I'm literally not getting anything out of these. Like, I need to cut back. So
it's a good time of the year to do that, isn't it? Don't you think? Like, check your smoke alarms, make sure your backups are working, and thin out your podcasts. I think those are 3 good things to do during this time of year.
Yeah. You know what else is a good thing to do this time of year?
Thank our awesome subscribers.
Thank our awesome supporters. That's right. And if I can remember to hit the actual the slideshow button, there we go. This is always annoying. Okay. Because they are so stinking awesome. And we're talking about awesome people like Josh from onthebubblepodcast.com, Greg from debtshepherd.com, where he teaches financial wellness. If you want to have a great today, get some weekly inspiration, go over to weeklyawesome.com. That's from Jonathan Bloom. Glenn the Geek Hebert. We might talk about my clean office, but I actually found a Horse Radio Network coffee mug, and on the bottom, it's actually signed with a little note from Glenn Hebert. I was like, that's very cool. You can find him over at horseradionetwork.com. Josh Rivers over at podcastingexperiments.com. Max Trescott from aviationnewstalk.com. Shane from spybrary.com. And Carrie Bond. Find her. The show is called Key West Perspective. Find it at keywestperspective.com/podcasts. And then my buddy Ronsley over at Amplify Media Group. Find him at mustamplify.com. If you would like to be an awesome supporter, it's really awesome when you do that. Simply go to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. And since next week is the first week of December, we'll be reading everybody's name. Otherwise, we just announce those that are $20 or more. And speaking of that, I threw out one level. It's an hour a month with little old me, and it's almost half price. And that spot has been vacated. So if you're looking for consulting that's cheaper than it usually is, It's a Black Friday special on Saturday, I guess we could say. You can go over and claim that spot because there's only one. That's not something it's like, oh, we'll just let everybody know. It's like there's one person that gets that. And there was somebody that used that for a few months, got a bunch of inexpensive, or we should say less expensive consulting. And now it's vacant for you to pick up. But we were talking about thinning the herd. Jim, is there anything that you wanted to do this year that you didn't? Let me play a quick clip here because I found this. Yesterday all I did was clean. That's all I did. I threw out 4 bags of stuff. It was amazing, and I found this morning on. He said I had it. I seriously just had. I have here it is. And I was like, oh, apparently I was going to do a show.
Welcome to How to Podcast, where we talk about how to podcast. This show helps you tackle one podcasting topic at a time. Here is your host, Dave Jackson.
And I was like, oh yeah, I was going to do that show. This is my first thought of, I want to do a show with one podcast topic because the School of Podcasting has multiple ones. I want to make a short show. And there is one. That's my double secret probation. And for the record, that's not my double secret probation. I have that domain name, howtopodcast.com. Right now it's pointing at a Paul Culligan book and a link to the School of Podcasting. So we're kind of both cross-promoting on that site. But that was when I was like, oh yeah, I was going to do that. And then I never did. So Jim, anything this year that you thought, I'd like to do this? And all of a sudden, because I know it's not December yet, it just feels like December. We got a whole another week in November to go through. But anything that
it's pre-December. This week in November is pre-December because it's going to feel like no matter how much we do, it's going to feel like December to us. You know, I'd hope to do a little more promotion this year, a little more social promotion, a little more, in kind of figuring out some of the LinkedIn and Facebook promotion stuff to get it out there. And I haven't done that at all. And so, on the Home Gadget Geeks or on the Average Guy side, that was what I was hoping to do. We saw a tremendous lift with that on the Gallup side this year, where I actually have some folks who are spending not full time, but a lot of their time thinking about social promotions. And we've had a lot of luck and a lot of success. And I think our numbers are way up because of it. So yeah, I kind of wish I'd have done more promotion for Home Gadget Geeks. I think we have a good product there. I just don't promote it enough. I just don't. I tried and I stopped and started a newsletter about 8 times this year. Like I just could not. Yeah, I just couldn't.
That's what I did. I stopped mine because it used to be in ConvertKit. I think you can do this in Aweber as well, and probably Mailchimp. You can take your RSS feed and say, hey, when I put out a new post, why don't you turn that into a newsletter, send it out to my people? And I stopped that when I realized that could get me kicked out of Amazon because I put associate links, affiliate links in my show notes. So those would then go to, I got kicked out of Amazon anyway. So it dawned on me, I'm like, hey, I can go back to just doing this again. And if you ever wonder why my show notes are always a mile long, it's because I'm writing them like it's a newsletter. And I turned that back on. And that was just something it dawned on me that I should do. And then the thing I did yesterday, I literally spent almost the entire day cleaning my office. Like I actually ran the vacuum in my office because you can see the actual carpet. And what it is, especially when I was traveling, you would come home and you're like, all right, I'll put this swag over here. I'll go through the swag bag later. I'll do this. Here's a pile of business cards. Here's the mail and it's everything else. And I was like, holy cow. Like actually right now it's alive. I got to go get an HDMI card, but there's the Mac. I actually dug out my Mac computer because I'm getting questions on that while I'm doing this. The other thing I bought, these are kind of neat. That's still the same lights, but I bought these diffusing boxes that fit over them for I think they were $10 each, which is actually helping the light because I still have a fairly decent glare here, but I don't look quite so I don't know. I didn't like the way I looked before. But it's weird because I swear, and I've heard about this, there's actually a book called Does This Clutter Make My Butt Look Fat? And it's all about how when you live in clutter, it kind of like for me, if I go on a trip, The last thing I do is I make my kitchen spotless, because when I walk in the house and I throw down my suitcase and this and that, I walk in the kitchen, I don't go, I got a sink full of dishes and yeah. So it's just one of those things. It's weird, but at least for me, when things are not cluttered, like when I walk in my office now, I actually feel good. Number one, I kind of feel proud of myself. And I took all the boxes. They're now in my closet of all the microphones and things like that. I do have this. Let me grab 2 seconds to ouch. Do you do this too?
Watch your headphones there.
You roll over the headphone cable. Yeah. I have a bag. I have a bag of cables. Literally. It's stuffed full of cables. And this is because every microphone gives me a USB cable. It gives me a microphone cable. And it's just like, this is like the first string bag of cables. I've got more over here, but I've got a big giant box in my closet because, well, you might need those. And it's where I was like, I went through a bunch of stuff yesterday that it was like I did an actual episode of this on building a better Dave. I had 2 phones. One had an answering machine and one was cordless. I was like, I don't have a home phone anymore. Probably haven't had a home phone for years. And just again, kind of did a inventory of like, do I need this? Is this giving me any value? But yet I'm taking up room. I found an old actual Sony Walkman that was completely just toast because I left the batteries in it. And it was all, I was like, I thought, and immediately, of course, the technician even goes, I could take these out and with a little baking soda and powder and I can clean up the contacts and I bet this thing would still work. And I'm like, even if I got it to work, I haven't listened to a cassette tape. I've got a bunch of them. I did find those. For those of you kids, this is a cassette tape. Ooh, this was, this is the Magic Drummer tape, which means it's a drum machine that I've recorded on cassette that I could then play to. Again, why am I keeping that? I don't know.
Right.
It's that time of year to maybe start thinking about next year. Like you said, you want to do more promotion. But I was just amazed at just having a clean environment can, for me at least, boost my creativity because I'm not walking in going, ugh. So
it feels so much better. Yeah, it feels so much better when even I get the desk kind of cleaned off. I've got a lot of clutter up on here. And so it just feels good to kind of get everything organized and in its place. And like you said, things cleaned up. I've got a stack of papers right here, and there's like 2 or 3 things I need to do with them. And I just been sitting there. I look at them like, I really need to deal with those. And I just don't. And it's one of those things for me, just kind of doing the budget on a more regular basis. I had created a really complicated budget system for myself that we required like 3 hours every Saturday to reconcile and run all these reports and cross-reference, right? All these things. And I hated doing it. And so I've simplified. I have this running budget thing that I do now. I just kind of a system I created on my own where I can reconcile it in about 5 minutes and I'm good. I've got a high spot and a low spot and I kind of look for certain numbers and I'm good. It feels really good. If I go 4 or 5 days, I kind of start getting antsy about the budget, and I'm like, I should probably get that done because I've made it easier for myself. Now I just go in and do it. Man, I feel so much better when it's done. So I guess I would encourage people with their podcast, like think about as you're producing your next podcast, the next couple, when you get to those spots where you start getting a little jittery, or you sense that you don't want to do the work, ask yourself the question, why? Like say, what is it about this part that I don't like? And either fix it or outsource it. I mean, I think we have plenty, Dave, 5 years ago when we started Ask the Podcast Coach, there weren't all these people willing to do all these things for money.
No.
Right? And today there is. Like there's an abundance and there's some great people who listen to the show who are available to do these, whether it's edits or show notes or, whatever, guest prep or finding guests. Like all these services are out there. If you've got something you're getting to or it's slowing you down, in my case, I mentioned the newsletter. I don't know if I gain or lose anything from that silly newsletter for my listeners. They don't really care. They're used to me not delivering like I say I'm going to on the newsletter anyway. So I just don't know if it gets that much better. I could outsource it. Liquidity said she asked me if I was looking for a writer. I could outsource it. I don't find that much value in it today, but maybe there's some things that's stopping you that you could outsource and or just eliminate, like, hey, I don't really need this phone anymore. Like, I have these landline phones I don't need, Dave. Those should go in the recycle, and they should go to Best Buy and be done, right? Just get rid of them.
Yeah, I donated about 14 books to the library, but my favorite was half the way I cleaned my office was I took a bunch of stuff and stuck it on my bed in the bedroom, right? So then it's like, okay, the office is clean. If I'm going to sleep, I need to clean off the bedroom. I'm talking overheaping, like you have to like struggle to get the drawer open with black socks. I think I wore black socks 5 times this year. And I'm like, meanwhile, I've got all these other, I've got sweatpants and all this other stuff that I have no room for. I'm like, you don't really need that drawer of black socks, because depending on how many people die and get married next year, that's the only time I wear black socks, is a wedding or a funeral. So
you probably need a pair or two. I've been listening to Mike Murphy, not listening. I've been talking to Mike Murphy. Monday nights, he and I get together for a couple hours. We call it Monday Night Happy Hour. We just get on and just talk, right?
Yeah.
And it's just a good time for he and I to connect. I really like Mike, but he's kind of gone into a very, very minimalistic approach, right? And he says it's freeing.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
Yeah. So
I get that.
Yeah.
But I was laughing. I had a whole second set. Like, I had all this stuff from having a second bed. Like, I mean, I have separate sets of sheets for my bed, but I had the whole, like, the fluffy thing that you stick under the sheets to make it more puffier, because apparently the mattress isn't puffy enough, and extra pillows. And I'm like, for what? I don't have another bed here. And I'm like, and I do have a blow up bed. So if somebody actually did want to stay here, I have an inflatable bed if you don't want to use the couch. And I was like, I've had one person stay here, 1 in 3 years. And I'm like, because if it's a family member, they're going to stay at my brother's house. He has like extra bedrooms all over the place. I'm like, okay, but yet this is taking up room in my closet. So that was gone. So do a little inventory.
But what kind of things, Dave, do you think with podcasting, what are those things that we hold on to? What do we keep? Let's think through that. What are those things that we don't need, maybe? And it's going to be different for everybody, right?
Oh, for me, and it's way different for me. But one of the things I have to, like, I keep saying I'm going to do this, and I have literally a mixer in every room. I mean, every time I turn around, there was another mixer. I mean, and they're good mixers. I've got a really nice Behringer 18 channel. I've got the PreSonus one, and that's the thing that's really cool right now. Like, I have almost nothing on my desk. I have the Mix Pre 6. And so the other thing, let's see, what other things do we clutter over with a podcast? I know the one thing that people don't do. In fact, I'm probably going to make this a free resource, because we had, I do the round tables for the School of Podcasting, and there's a brand new podcaster, and I cannot stress this enough. When you start off, make a folder called podcasts, plural, because I know you're starting with one. Trust me, there's a really good chance there's going to be a second one. So you do that. Then inside that, you make a folder called the name of your show. So Ask the Podcast Coach. Then you go into that folder and you have episodes. So it's podcast, Ask the Podcast Coach, episodes. And in that folder, you have 001, 002. And so that anything you're doing, any kind of clips, artwork, anything like that, it's in that folder. And then keep your Audacity file, your GarageBand, your Hindenburg, your Audition, whatever it is. Because I used to export all my files as a WAV file and then keep them. I don't do that anymore, because if I want to go back and get a WAV file of this show, I can just open up the Hindenburg file and export it as a WAV. I don't have to keep it as a WAV. But it just, otherwise you end up looking for stuff over and over. I did it this morning. I cleaned my office and couldn't find a thing. I was like, wait a minute, where's the USB device to put into, so we can get Mixler up and running. I can also, let me bring up to the microphone. Did you know you could do this? Alexa, where's the stretch and dust?
I don't know that one.
Oh, come on.
Try it again.
Alexa,
I'm sorry.
Where's the stretch and dust? Or if I just say,
Sorry, I'm not sure about that.
Alexa, I can't find the stretch and dust.
Sorry, I don't know that.
She's no helpful. All right.
What was it supposed to do?
I told her last night, I said, remember, the stretch and dust is under the sink, because I spent like 20 minutes looking for that thing yesterday. And if you're not sure what stretch and dust are,
I didn't realize it'll remember where things are at.
It's supposed to. You're supposed to say, Alexa, remember the stretch and dust is under the sink. So I'm not sure how I then bring that back up.
To remember this direction, dust is the seat, so I'm not sure.
Yeah,
right?
so she's confused. Alexa, headphone adapter.
You want me to remember headphone adapter, right?
Well,
No.
she's in that loop because
Yeah.
she's still
Yeah.
listening.
What about that? What should I remember?
Cancel.
Canceling.
Yeah, but you're supposed to be able to say, remember this.
Yeah.
And then
I didn't know that.
It works that good.
Yeah. Well, it's still tricky sometimes getting those things to work.
But that is something, again, that you can waste a lot of time looking for stuff. And so I guess that's really where I'm headed at, because we always hear, oh man, podcasting takes so much more time than I thought. And then for me, especially, that's why I use Evernote to organize my thoughts. I use folders to organize my shows. And I don't look for stuff. And it was funny because the one time we were doing a round table and I shared my screen and one of the members, they said, oh, well, such and such. And I go, oh, that's back on episode such and such. And I just went podcast, double click on this, double click on that, go to episodes. Here it is. And they're like, that is the most organized thing I've ever seen in my life. And I go, yep, exactly. And that took me 10 seconds to know right where it is. And especially if you're starting, if you do that up front, oh, does it make life so much easier? And that's why I always tell people that. It's like I've done this for years now. Like the School of Podcasting folder is actually a little bit of a mess because I didn't do that from day one. And there's all sorts of stuff in there that's a little messy. But my new podcast, I have one called Production that has all my intros and outros and my artwork. So if I ever need to go on the road, I can copy that folder in a Dropbox and I'm good to go. And then I have one called Finished Episodes where I used to export my WAV files into that. And that's actually where I export my MP3 file. So I have my podcast, and then I go in, I've got production, episodes, and finished. And it's just makes life a whole lot easier on finding stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you will thank me later on that one.
Yeah, no, I think it is good to get. I too early got a folder structure. I do it a little bit differently than you do, but I have a folder structure that's the same across all the podcasts that I do. And that was the other key, is getting them all lined up so you expect the same things to be in the same folders across podcasts. So
yeah,
podcast is the highest level, and then everything's in the same place. And it just makes it, when you're clicking, and you'll actually get really good muscle memory from knowing where to go and how to get it. And I can click through those things, clickety click this down to find where things are at. I know it's bad when I move something or I rename something, and then I'm every week for a month or two, I'm clicking the wrong file because I renamed it. But I think those things are really important to get your digital life kind of cleaned up and straightened up and backed up. And I had somebody bring over a laptop this morning who was like, hey, we did an update and now like it's corrupted a Windows file system thing, and it won't even, you can't even get to anything on it. And they were like, I'm writing a book and it's in there somewhere and I can't find it. And can you, and yeah, I think we found it. And I made them restore it to another computer before I even touched the computer they currently have. That's probably the most important thing. But, are you, and I say this every year, are you backing up? Not putting it, putting it in the cloud in one space is not a backup. Like, just because it's on OneDrive does not mean it's a backup, right? Just because it's sitting in the cloud somewhere doesn't mean it's a backup. Just because it's on Libsyn doesn't mean it's a backup,
no,
right?
At all.
If that's the one space that it's at, right? So do you have it in a couple? Three is ideal, right? And do you have it? Can you, if things were to go horribly wrong, can you get it back again? And can you find it? Those are all, I think, really important year-end things to do.
Yeah. Did you get any Black Friday deals?
Let's see. I went out to Lowe's yesterday to buy some home stuff, and everything I bought wasn't Black Friday. I'm not a big fan of Black Friday. I was going to buy an Xbox, but no, and I don't need any podcasting stuff, Dave. I'm really trying hard not to spend money on podcasting stuff right now. I
went from my brother's house Thanksgiving night to Best Buy, and where I live, it's near the mall. And so we've got a Target right next to a Best Buy, right next to a Home Depot. And it was insanity. Oh, yeah. And what was really cool, I actually ended up, because I took Daniel J. Lewis. It's all Daniel J. Lewis's fault, but this will eventually get replaced with a 40-inch flat screen TV.
Nice.
for $120. I went,
Yeah.
you're kidding me.
No.
Now it's not the latest. It's not 4K. It's like LED. But I'm like, for what I'm doing,
Perfect. Yeah.
And then the fun thing was, and talk about a first world problem. I think I have, I don't know, 32 something inch, 30-ish inch in my bedroom. And I'm like, ooh, should I take the 30-inch and put it here, take the 40-inch for the bedroom? And I'm like, what kind of weird first world problem do you have? Which large screen TV should I use?
Which TV that is bigger than any TV my parents ever had, ever?
Yeah.
Am I going to use? Yeah. To back it. Well, that's cool. I by the way, I would leave your smaller one where it's at, and I would put the big one up behind you. You'll need to really dim it. You know that, right? Whenever like this screen that's right here, I can actually barely see that screen when I turn around. But because of the sensor, they're light starved, right? So any light source that you put in there has to be super dim. So
otherwise it's gonna
you'll become a shadow.
Backlighting,
yeah.
That's interesting. So I have, and here's the fun thing that talk about it. So it's super cheap on the TV, but what do they do? Yeah, I don't know if they raised the price or the regular price of a mount to put it on the wall.
Oh yeah. The TV's like $99 and the mount is $1,000 now.
Yeah, it was 36, I think, or something like that. And then I go to Walmart yesterday because I was on I was just on a out for punishment, so I went to Walmart and there was a stand there for like $27. I'm not taking it back.
Oh no, that's cheap. I was at Walmart last night, and you can buy a mount. You can buy a TV install for $79 at the front register.
Wow.
They were having like, hey, do you need your TV mounted? Do you need your furniture put together? And for $35, they'll come out per item and put your furniture together. And I'm like, now that is probably worth it. But
Best Buy wanted $200 to do that. Because I'm like, I'm not Mr. Handy guy, but I'm like, I'm pretty sure I can,
I wish I lived close to you, because I'd put that TV on the wall in a second.
Yeah. And because it's an apartment, I think I'm just going to deal with the fact that there's probably going to be a cable going up to it. You know what I mean? I know there's ways you can do this and hide this and that and have a sub wall. And I'm like, no, it's just, I'm going to be okay with that. I'll deal with it. It's not a big deal.
Well, 40-incher is going to need a pretty good mount on there, and you're going to want to make sure it's mounted correctly, because that thing will drop. They're pretty light, but that thing.
They'll ask the podcast.
Yeah, that'd be great to have on video.
Yeah,
let's not do that. Get somebody to install that thing.
Yeah. The other thing I upgraded from last week was I'd mentioned how iJingle had switched to some sort of webcaster thing. And I actually looked at a bunch of different apps this morning. One was like $40 that Ambrosia Software, the people that make a bunch of really cool stuff on a Mac, they had an app. And all I wanted was like one that had a fade in and fade out and different playlists, kind of like this thing. And then I saw one that was like $3. It was super duper simple. And I just went, And then I'm like, how much is the upgrade? $20. I'm like, you know what? No learning curve, kind of. Let's just upgrade. And so I did. So I'm still using iJingle for if you ever wonder how I'm playing all the fun-filled sound effects and,
But Dave, that brings up a good point. You were telling me about that in the pre-show, and I was like, how often sometimes do we spend $100 to, when we could have spent 10 and just stayed with what we had? You were looking at all these different solutions, and we looked at that Rode Podcaster box, whatever they call that thing, and it's $600. And it's got all kinds of fancy buttons, but you could have just spent $10 more or 20 and had the newest version, and you were fine. Like sometimes those shiny objects, I could spend 100. I could spend 10 and just upgrade, or, I could spend 150. And so I do that all the time, where sometimes I've been with Black Friday and stuff, I've been thinking about getting a Roomba vacuum cleaner. Right.
Yeah.
So I started with the cheap ones, $250, right? And I'm thinking, okay, $250? Do I really need this thing? And by the end of it, I'm spending $1,000 on the i9 or i7, 7i, whatever it is. It empties itself and walks the dog, and makes dinner for you.
Dishes, yeah.
And it was one of those kind of. I'm like, okay, and do I need to throw $1,000 at a 15-minute a weekend problem. Like I have a vacuum cleaner. In 30 minutes, I can vacuum the whole house. Like I can do that. And do I need a machine to do that for $1,000? So I think sometimes in podcasting, we think we've got to have all the fancy gear to be able to get this stuff done. And do I need an expensive do I need a, Rode this or a Heil that, or, and it's like, no, actually you don't. But, so yeah, there you go.
It's crazy. I know I did the same thing last year with a TV. Went in, I'm just going to get a basic flat screen, and ended up walking out with a 50-inch giant thing, which then had to have me go buy a new table because the TV was so big it didn't fit on my old table. It was crazy. Jim, anything fun coming up on the averageguy.tv?
Yeah, no, we took the week off, but we still have that Black Friday episode out there. If you haven't listened to it, much of it is still true. A lot of the Black Friday specials go for all month. Apparently, Black Friday's not a day anymore. It's a month.
It's a month.
Head out to the averageguy.tv. Lots of great stuff out there.
Got it. On the School of Podcasting, I'll be interviewing one of my Australian friends about your podcast launch, as well as Google UTMs, which allow you to track where people are coming from your show. We're here every Saturday, 10:30 Eastern. Stick around for some post-show.